thin mattress in the laundry room. "Better than nothing," she said. What she never realized was that I'd already moved every asset out of my name long before this day. I lay on that cold cement floor, my aching fingers clutching a single blanket as the washing machine tripped like a slow countdown. 72 years of hard work, and here I was, sleeping beside detergent bottles and forgotten lint. "Be grateful," Stephanie had said with a sugary smile. "Most people your age are in care homes. At least you have family. The word tasted bitter now. Just 3 months earlier, I was still in the master bedroom of the house I'd paid off after decades of double nursing shifts. The same house where I'd raised her alone after her father passed. Greg, my son-in-law, couldn't even meet my eyes when they moved my furniture to the attic. "We're just being practical, Barbara," he'd murmured. "We need the bedroom for our home office." Upstairs, their laughter and clinking glasses floated through the thin walls. I pictured the maple tree outside, the one I planted when Stephanie was born, and remembered the little girl who once begged me to push her higher on the swing. Where had that child gone? They thought they had everything figured out, papers to sign, plans to secure their future. But I'd been watching, listening, and planning too. My phone buzzed beneath the pillow, a text from Martha. "Everything's ready for Friday. Hang in there." I smiled in the dark. Let them celebrate tonight. They had no idea the house at the center of their schemes was already out of their reach. Each drip of the washing machine sounded like a clock, ticking toward the moment their perfect plan would crumble. I once believed motherhood meant giving everything. But as I lay there, I held onto a new truth. Sometimes the greatest act of love is showing that you can't be taken for granted, and that the quietest person in the room might be the one holding all the cards. "You're investing in my future, Mom," Stephanie used to say. "Someday I'll take care of you." Apparently, someday arrived as a thin mattress beside a humming dryer. I eased myself upright, back stiff from another restless night, and glanced through the small window at the garden I'd tended for decades. Yesterday, Greg casually mentioned replacing my roses with a modern rock feature Stephanie had spotted in a magazine. The door opened without a knock. Stephanie stepped in, holding a mug of lukewarm coffee. "Morning, Mom." "Busy day ahead. We'll need the laundry room in an hour, so you should move to the sunroom until dinner." The sunroom, just an enclosed porch with a single plastic chair. This was my life now, shuffled from one cramped corner to another in the house I'd paid off long ago. "Frank called yesterday," I said, watching her face. "Frank, my late husband's closest friend and our longtime financial advisor." Her smile stiffened. "What did he want?" "Just checking in," I replied. Her interest flashed, then she turned briskly. "Greg and I have a meeting with the contractor about the kitchen remodel. Don't answer the door if anyone stops by." When she left, I pulled the small notebook from beneath my pillow and made another careful entry. Every slight, every conversation about my finances documented since the day they moved in. My mind drifted back 23 years to the day Robert died of a sudden heart attack. One moment we were planning an anniversary trip. The next I was a widow with a 12-year-old daughter. We'd saved, invested, and insured wisely, but raising Stephanie alone drained those resources. I never remarried. My life revolved around her. Tutors for mediocre grades, a new car after the first was wrecked, paid off student loans when she abandoned grad school. "Mom, nobody finishes a PhD unless they want to stay broke forever," she'd said, as if I were the naive one. Then came Greg, charming, sharp-eyed Greg, who noticed the antique grandfather clock the first time he visited. "Beautiful piece," he'd remarked, his gaze lingering. "Must be worth a fortune." Their quick wedding followed, then Jason, my only grandchild and the one bright spot. At 13, he's the only one who greets me with genuine warmth. From upstairs came Greg's voice. "Did you talk to her about the papers?" "Not yet," Stephanie answered. "Let's wait until the kitchen renovation's approved." I smiled to myself. If only they knew about my own quiet meetings with lawyers and bankers, the signatures on documents they'd never see. My phone buzzed, a message from Martha, my closest friend for 40 years. "Lunch today. I'll pick you up at noon." She'd warned me not to let them move in. "They'll pick you clean," she'd said. I defended them then. Now I was thankful for her foresight. Jason's footsteps approached. He slipped into the room, tall and awkward, a flicker of concern in his eye. "Morning, Grandma," he said softly. "Dad told me to help you move to the sunroom." He lowered his voice and handed me a small MP3 player. I loaded it with your favorite old songs. Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart. I don't like how they treat you," he whispered. I squeezed his hand. "Everything will be all right. Life has its own surprises." As we walked toward the sunroom, I knew there would be fallout. Jason might be caught in the storm I was about to set in motion, but maybe that was necessary. Some lessons about respect can't be learned any other way. From the sunroom window, I watched Greg measure the garden while Stephanie nodded at his side. They thought they were designing their future. They didn't realize they were standing on quicksand. My phone buzzed again. 3 more days. That was all I needed to endure. The laundry room, the sunroom, the daily condescension, until Friday changed everything. Morning came with the same ritual of humiliation. At exactly 7:15, Stephanie knocked sharply on the laundry room door. "Mom, we need the washer." Time to move to the sunroom. I folded my nightgown into the small plastic bin that now held my entire wardrobe. 3 dresses, 2 pairs of slacks, 5 blouses, undergarments. She donated the rest without asking. "Such a waste to keep clothes you never wear," she'd said, tossing even my favorite blue dress, the one Robert loved. As I shuffled toward the sunroom, Greg's low voice carried from the kitchen. "We're making progress. Old folks can be stubborn, but she'll sign. Stephanie knows how to handle her mother." My heart thudded. Sign what? The house was already mine alone. What else were they after? The answer arrived that afternoon. Stephanie entered the sunroom, Greg lingering behind her, a glossy stack of brochures in hand. "Mom," she began, forcing a bright smile. "We've been thinking about your future, making sure you're properly cared for." I set my book aside. "We love having you here, but caring for a parent is challenging," she continued. Greg stepped forward. "We found some wonderful assisted living communities." The brochures spilled across my lap. Smiling seniors playing cards, swimming, all at eye-watering prices. "And how would this be paid for?" I asked, though I already knew. Greg cleared his throat. "That brings us to this." He produced a second document. "A power of attorney for your finances, just a precaution as you get older." I almost laughed. I've balanced accounts longer than they've been alive. Meanwhile, they refinanced their mortgage to cover credit card bills. "I'll need my lawyer to review this," I said evenly. Their eyes snapped to me. "Your lawyer?" Greg's voice tightened. "Frank recommended someone," I replied, watching the flicker of worry cross his face. "That's not necessary," Stephanie rushed in. "Greg can handle it. He's done all the research." "Nevertheless," I said, placing the papers aside, "I'll take my time." Frustration passed between them like an electric current. "Fine," Stephanie said at last, "but don't wait too long. We've already put down a deposit to hold your spot." After they left, I reached for my hidden phone and texted Martha. They're making their move. Power of attorney, assisted living. Her reply came quickly. "Not surprised. Still on for tomorrow?" "Lawyer will meet us at my place." "Yes," I typed back. They're getting impatient. That evening, I sat at the far end of the dinner table, a silent observer, while Stephanie and Greg whispered. Jason, my 13-year-old grandson, noticed the tension. "Grandma," he said, "can you help me with my history project this weekend? It's about the 1960s. I'd love to hear what it was really like." Before I could answer, Stephanie cut in. "Jason, Grandma might not be here this weekend. We're looking into new living arrangements for her." Jason's fork clattered. "What? Why can't she stay here?" "It's complicated, sport," Greg said smoothly. "Grandma needs special care now." "No, she doesn't," Jason shot back. "She takes care of herself. She even helped me with my math last week when you were too busy." I hid a small smile. 3 more days. They thought they were in control. They had no idea the ground beneath them was about to shift. Stephanie shot me a sharp look, as if I'd purposely turned her son against her. "That's enough, Jason." "This is an adult decision," she snapped. After dinner, I headed back to the laundry room when I heard quiet footsteps behind me. Jason stood there, his young face tight with worry. "They're trying to get rid of you, aren't they?" he asked. I sighed, torn between protecting him and telling the truth. "Your parents think they're doing what's best. It's about money, isn't it?" His insight caught me off guard. "I heard Dad on the phone talking about your assets, about selling things." My chest tightened. So Greg was already planning to liquidate my possessions, family heirlooms and memories included. "Jason," I said softly, "sometimes adults make choices based on what they want, not what's right. But remember this. I heard Stephanie's footsteps approaching. I'll be fine. No matter what happens, I finished quickly. Stephanie rounded the corner, suspicion in her eyes. Jason, homework. Now then to me. Mom, don't fill his head with complaints. He doesn't need to be involved. When the house fell silent again, I opened my notebook and recorded every detail. Tomorrow was the turning point. Martha would pick me up, and the plan I'd been building for months would finally set in motion. They thought I was powerless. They had no idea how closely I'd been watching them. Upstairs, voices rose in tense whispers. She's being difficult on purpose, Stephanie hissed. We need that power of attorney before she talks to anyone else. Greg's response chilled me. Don't worry. One way or another, we'll get her to sign. Martha's old Buick pulled to the curb precisely at noon, just as Stephanie and Greg left for lunch with what Greg called potential investors. I'd overheard enough of their secret calls to know he was scrambling to fund another doomed business venture. Be back by 3, Stephanie said, applying another coat of lipstick. The contractor's coming to measure the kitchen. You need to be out of the way. Out of the way. The phrase that had come to define my existence in my own home. Of course, dear, I answered, masking my irritation with a forced smile. As soon as their car turned the corner, I hurried to Martha's waiting vehicle, knees aching but heart racing. My word, Barbara, Martha said as I settled in. You look exhausted. Sleeping on a laundry room floor will do that, I replied dryly. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. I still can't believe they're doing this after everything you sacrificed. Belief is a luxury, I said. I'm dealing with reality now. We drove past the familiar landmarks of my life. The school where Stephanie once sang lead in the spring musical, the park where I'd pushed her on Sunday swings, the hospital where I worked endless night shifts to pay for braces, prom dresses, her first car. But Martha didn't stop at a cafe. She pulled up to a small, discreet office building on the edge of town. Harrington Legal Services. Ready? She asked, eyes steady and encouraging. I nodded and clutched the folder of carefully hidden documents. Inside, James Harrington greeted me with a warm handshake. Distinguished, silver-haired and calm, he radiated quiet authority. Mrs. Patterson, I'm glad to finally meet you. Martha's told me everything. For the next hour, we went over it all. The trust I'd created 3 years ago, when Greg's interest in my finances first raised alarms. The transfer of the house into that trust. The meticulous notes documenting Stephanie and Greg's behavior, and the power of attorney they were pushing me to sign. Your foresight is impressive, James said after reviewing the paperwork. Most people wait until it's too late. I was a nurse for 35 years, I replied. I've seen how quickly families can change when money and property are at stake. I hoped Stephanie would be different, but I prepared for the possibility she wouldn't be. James nodded, making quick notes on his legal pad. And you're certain you want to proceed with this? I'm certain, I replied, my voice calm despite the storm inside. They're planning to move me to a facility 3 hours away and gain access to the savings I worked my entire life to build, while sleeping in my bedroom and remodeling my kitchen. Very well. He turned to his computer, typing briskly. I'll have the final documents ready for your signature tomorrow. We'll serve the formal notice on Friday, as planned. Martha squeezed my hand. What about Jason, she asked, knowing my biggest worry. James offered a reassuring smile. The educational trust you set up for your grandson is completely separate and protected. His future is secure. Relief washed over me. As we prepared to leave, James handed me a small device. A voice recorder, he explained. Given their pressure tactics, it's wise to document any conversations about finances or that power of attorney. Back in Martha's car, I felt lighter than I had in months. The plan was finally in motion. After years of watching, waiting, and quietly preparing, I was taking back control. Want to get a real lunch before I return you to prison? Martha joked gently. Yes, I said with a faint smile. But first I need to make another stop. I guided her to Riverview Park, to the bench overlooking the river, where a bronze plaque honored my late husband. Robert Patterson, beloved husband, father, and friend. I sat, tracing the inscription with my fingers. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Robert, I whispered. She's still our daughter, but I barely recognize her anymore. I don't think you would either. A breeze rustled the leaves above me, carrying both comfort and sorrow, for the husband I'd lost and the daughter I no longer knew. My phone buzzed, a text from Jason. Where are you? Mom and Dad came home early. They're mad. I quickly replied, Having lunch with Martha. Home soon. Another message appeared instantly. Dad says you're probably meeting with lawyers. Mom is crying. My heart pounded. How could they know? Were they checking my phone? Tell them I'll be home in 20 minutes, I typed back, then hurried to Martha's car. They suspect something, I said urgently. Martha drove fast but steady. As we pulled up, Stephanie paced the porch. Fury etched on her face. Greg stood rigid beside her. Want me to come in with you? Martha asked, glaring at the pair. No, I said, steeling myself. I need to handle this. I stepped out, nodding goodbye to Martha. Stephanie stormed toward me. Where were you? And don't say lunch with Martha. We called the country club. They said you weren't there. I met her glare calmly. We ate somewhere else. I wasn't aware I needed to provide an itinerary. Greg moved closer, voice low. Barbara, if you're meeting with lawyers or financial advisors behind our backs, like you've been meeting with assisted living facilities behind mine? I cut in, surprising even myself. They exchanged uneasy glances, unsettled by my sudden confidence. Mom, Stephanie said, her tone softening into something calculated. We're only trying to help you. You're getting older. You need support. I studied her face, searching for the child I once knew, and finding only a stranger. I think I'd like to rest now, I said, walking past them into the house. On the staircase, Jason watched silently, concern in his eyes. I gave him a small, reassuring smile. Back in the laundry room, I slid the voice recorder beneath my pillow and opened my notebook to document every word of the confrontation. 2 more days, I reminded myself. 2 more days until everything changes. Friday morning arrived with an unexpected stillness. For the first time in weeks, I opened my eyes without dread. Calm, not from peace, but from certainty. A soft knock sounded on the door. Mom, Stephanie called, her voice oddly cheerful. I made your favorite breakfast. Blueberry pancakes? I hadn't seen blueberry pancakes in this house since before they moved in. The sudden sweetness could only mean one thing. The day they expected me to hand over control of my life with a single signature. I'll be right out, I called, slipping the voice recorder from beneath my pillow into my robe pocket. In the kitchen, the stage was set like a scene from a play. My good china, boxed up for years, was suddenly displayed on the table. Greg sat waiting, his face arranged into a practiced smile. Jason lingered nearby, quiet but alert. Good morning, Barbara, Greg said, pulling out my chair. Beautiful day, isn't it? I noticed the stack of documents, half hidden beneath a magazine. Yes, lovely, I replied, settling in as Stephanie set a plate of blueberry pancakes before me with a little flourish. I thought we could spend some family time today, she said lightly, pouring coffee. Maybe look through old photo albums. Interesting, I said, tasting an undercooked pancake. I thought you had a meeting with the kitchen contractor. A flicker of irritation crossed her face before she recovered. You rescheduled. Family comes first. Family comes first. The phrase I'd lived by all my life, now twisted into a tool of manipulation. I ate slowly, watching the silent exchange of glances between them, each one urging me to finish so they could begin. When I finally set down my fork, Greg cleared his throat. Before we look at photos, there's something important we need to discuss. He slid the hidden papers toward me. These are for your protection, he said smoothly. The power of attorney, I replied flatly. Stephanie's smile tightened. Yes, and the forms for Sunny Pines. They've reserved a beautiful room for you, but they need everything signed today. I studied the papers, bright yellow tabs marking signature lines for financial and medical control. And if I sign these, what happens next? I asked. Stephanie leaned forward with feigned warmth. We'll help you pack this weekend. You can move in Monday. They have great activities and a shopping shuttle. And the house? I asked, eyes fixed on hers. Greg waved a casual hand. We'll take care of everything here. You won't have to worry about maintenance or bills. And my belongings? My jewelry? The furniture your father gave me? Stephanie's face flickered with guilt before she pasted on concern. We'll keep everything safe, Mom. Some older pieces might go into storage. And my accounts? I pressed. With the power of attorney, Greg said, shifting in his seat. We'll manage it all. Make sure you're cared for. How convenient, I murmured. Mom, Stephanie said sharply, the sweetness slipping. This isn't a negotiation. It's what's best for everyone. Everyone? I asked softly. Or just you and Greg? Her voice rose. For heaven's sake, we're trying to help you. Because it's my life, I said evenly. My home. My money. Greg's expression darkened. Barbara, be reasonable. You can't manage on your own. I picked up the pen they'd placed beside the documents. Their faces lit with relief as I slowly uncapped it. You know, I said casually, Sunny Pines cost nearly $5,000 a month. Are you planning to pay for that from my savings? And when that runs out? Stephanie blinked, caught off guard. Well, your accounts, of course. And after those are gone? Greg forced a smile. We're not going to let that happen. No, I said coldly. You wouldn't. Because once the money's gone, there's no reason to keep pretending this is about my well-being, is there? Stephanie gasped. Mom, how can you say that? I set the pen down and reached into my pocket for a small business card. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. But first, let me introduce someone. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. That, I said, rising calmly, would be James Harrington, my attorney. The color drained from Greg's face. You're what? My attorney, I repeated, meeting his eyes without a tremor. He's here to discuss the trust I created 3 years ago, I said evenly. The one that now owns this house and nearly everything else I worked for. Stephanie shot to her feet, chair scraping against the floor. Trust? What trust? What are you talking about? I moved toward the door, feeling stronger with each step. Why don't we let him explain? Behind me, I heard Greg muttering in a panic. When I opened the door, James Harrington stood tall and calm in a tailored suit, a leather portfolio under his arm. Mrs. Patterson, he said with a courteous nod. Are you ready? I looked back at my daughter and son-in-law, faces frozen between confusion and dread. Jason peeked from the kitchen doorway, a small, knowing smile playing at his lips. Yes, Mr. Harrington, I replied. It's time for the truth. The weeks after what Jason now calls the reckoning passed in a blur. James explained every detail of the trust. The house was no longer mine to sign away. My assets were protected, and Stephanie and Greg had exactly 30 days to vacate the property. Vindication washed through me, tempered by sorrow. No mother should ever need to shield herself from her own child. Now I sit on the balcony of my new apartment at Willow Creek, an independent living community just 10 minutes from my old neighborhood. Not a distant nursing home, not a place chosen for me, but a home I chose for myself. A pair of cardinals builds a nest in the oak outside. Martha relaxes across from me, her gardening hat tipped rakishly as she sips iced tea. So, she asks, heard from them? Not directly, I answer. Jason calls every few days. They're staying with Greg's brother while they look for a place. And you? How are you feeling about it all? I think for a moment. The sharp anger is gone, replaced by quiet acceptance. I did what I had to do. I couldn't let them take everything I'd built or ship me off to be forgotten. Martha nods, understanding as always. She helped me move, helped me choose the furniture that makes this space mine. A knock interrupts us. Martha raises an eyebrow. Expecting someone? Just Jason, I say, standing. He mentioned he might stop by. But when I open the door, Jason isn't alone. Stephanie stands slightly behind him, eyes downcast, clutching her purse with white knuckles. Hi, Grandma, Jason says, giving me a quick hug. Mom wanted to come too. Is that okay? I hesitate only a moment before stepping aside. Of course. Come in. Stephanie enters cautiously, as if crossing a border into unfamiliar territory. And in a way, she is. This apartment represents a freedom she no longer controls. Martha offers me a questioning look. I nod. She slips out politely, promising to return tomorrow for bridge. Jason breaks the silence. Your place is really nice, Grandma. Way better than the laundry room. Despite everything, I laugh. Yes, it's quite an upgrade. Stephanie winces at the reference. It's lovely, Mom, she says softly. I gesture to the living room. Let's sit. As we settle onto the couch, I notice the changes in her. No designer clothes, no carefully painted face, just jeans, a simple ponytail, and a posture that speaks of humility I haven't seen since she was a teenager. Jason chats about school and his science fair project until finally he excuses himself to explore the game room, leaving us alone. The silence stretches. I don't know where to start, Stephanie whispers. You could try the truth, I say, not unkindly. Her eyes fill with tears. We were wrong. What I did to you was unforgivable. I stay quiet, letting her words settle. The house, the power of attorney, Sunny Pines. It wasn't supposed to go that far. she continues. At first, we just thought we'd stay temporarily, save some money. Then Greg started talking about the equity in the house, about your savings, and you listen, I finish for her. She nods miserably. I convinced myself it was for your good, that you needed our help. But really, we were the ones who needed help. Greg's failed businesses, my spending. We were drowning in debt. I let the silence linger. There's no quick fix for what was broken, but at least the truth, finally, has a voice. We were desperate. Stephanie's voice barely carried across the room. The confession didn't surprise me. I'd already pieced it together from hushed phone calls and the endless stream of packages arriving at the house. Greg is furious, she went on. He wanted to challenge the trust, but our lawyer said it's ironclad. A flicker of reluctant respect crossed her face. You really thought of everything? I had to, I said simply. She brushed at a tear. I don't know what happens now, between us. I studied her carefully. Across from me sat not only the woman who'd once banished me to a laundry room, but also the little girl who used to curl into my lap, the teenager who sobbed on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, the young bride I'd walked down the aisle in her father's place. I don't know either, I admitted. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. But Jason shouldn't be caught in the middle. She nodded as if she'd expected worse. I've arranged for him to visit whenever he wants, I continued. The trust covers his college tuition directly. That was never in question. Her eyes widened. You're still doing that for him? After everything? He's my grandson, I said. He deserves a future free of adult mistakes. Stephanie lowered her gaze. You're a better mother than I deserved. The words hung in the quiet room. Raw, unvarnished truth. I neither contradicted her nor turned away. I should go, she whispered, rising. Thank you for seeing me. I walked her to the door where Jason waited, his face bright from exploring the community center. This place is awesome, Grandma. They even have a pool. I smiled, warmed by his excitement. You're welcome anytime. Your room is always ready. I'd made sure my apartment had a second bedroom just for him. Stephanie paused before stepping outside. Mom, I know it's not enough, but I am sorry. Truly sorry. I looked at her, really looked, and saw something I hadn't in years. Sincerity without a trace of manipulation. I know, I said softly, and I did. After they left, I returned to the balcony. The car's taillights disappeared into the evening while a pair of cardinals continued weaving twigs into a nest, building something new from scattered pieces. My phone buzzed, a text from Martha. Survived the invasion. Bridge club tomorrow still on? I typed back, yes to both. Bring wine, stories to tell. As dusk settled, a quiet peace filled me. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't, but because I had honored my own worth. The cold mattress in the laundry room felt like a distant memory. At 72, I'd reclaimed my dignity, my future, and begun a chapter entirely of my own making.